Good evening, folks. Going to be bringing you another guide here with Fury Warriors as a follow-up video to my previous one. Going to be specifically going over rotations, both your initial pull and your sustainability phase on this training dummy here. Going to be going over your execute phase as well on our lovely little gnome guy over here. Going to give him a beating, as well as we're going to fly over to the other training dummies on top of that rampart there, showing you the cleave rotation. The execute phase and the cleave rotation, they're very, very simple. Only a couple things you need to worry about while your initial pull and burst phase, and of course your sustained damage phase is a little more engaged, making Fury Warriors incredibly fun. So let's get it started. We're going to start with the initial phase on this training dummy over here. If you missed my previous guide, your main reason and your main focus as a Fury Warrior is to keep yourself enraged as much as possible. The reason being is if you are not enraged, your mastery means absolutely nothing. If you mouse over it here, your mastery increases all damage you deal while enraged by a certain percentage based on the level of mastery and the amount of mastery that you have. If you did miss my other guide again, the way you become enraged, you either crit with Bloodthirst, which we now have an attack that allows us to get increased critical strike chance if our Bloodthirst does not crit by using Furious Slash and stacking that up here. And if you can't crit with Bloodthirst and have poor luck, you can always dump your rage with Rampage, causing you to become enraged as well. Now, Enrage only has a 4-second window, so it's going to take a lot of playstyle and a lot of practice to make sure and to get in the groove of keeping yourself enraged as much as possible. The way you do that is this. You want to be rotating, of course, between your Rampage and your Bloodthirst, and you want to do your best not to overwrite one Rampage with another. The reason being is you don't want to waste those seconds of Rampage if you have other attacks you can do by using another Bloodthirst, when Raging Blow will do a lot more damage than a Bloodthirst. If you're already enraged, there's no reason to hit it with a Bloodthirst to overwrite the previous enrage you might have gotten from being using Rampage. Okay, so going over the initial pull here, you'll see me charge in. I get lucky with the Bloodthirst, fantastic. What I usually do before I pop these cooldowns, as you can see, I'm going to wait for that Rampage to go off so I can guarantee that in a rage. I'll hit Dragon's Roar, pop my other cooldowns, taking the full benefit of my mastery while I'm enraged to get that additional damage, and then just go to town on this guy, keeping yourself enraged, using those Rampages when you're not critting with Bloodthirst, and keeping yourself enraged as much as possible. You're going to be able to lower the cooldown of your Bloodthirst by stacking that haste, which is our primary stat this expansion. A little backwards since crit has been the king for Fury Warriors, but considering they give you a reason and a way to force your Bloodthirst to critical strike by using Furious Slash, crit actually becomes less important, not only because of that, but because Rampage allows us to become enraged as well. So lowering your cooldowns on Bloodthirst is incredibly important. Another reason why being enraged is so important, if you look over here, every time you enrage, you get 100% increased attack speed. That's your auto attacks for 4 seconds. Of course, you do take a little bit of additional damage while you're enraged. If you spec into it correctly, you'll be taking 15% additional damage instead of the base 20, which has been changed in 7.1. However, taking a little bit of extra damage is not a bad thing, because you're going to be generating more rage, which you can use in your Rampages and other attacks. The critical, execute phase and critting with your executes for this specific phase is incredibly easy. If you progress down your artifact weapon tree far enough to where your executes stack, increasing the damage by 5% per stack, up to 99 times. And as I said earlier in my previous video, I have not maxed it at 99 stacks. I've gotten to high teens to low 20s because the bosses in Mythic Plus and sometimes even in raids die too fast for me to actually stack it up to 99 times. Thankfully, I don't want to have to stack it 99 times. Another great tool here, Sense Death, right after this Gold Dragon here. Execute has a 15% chance to make your next execute cost no rage. So if you get incredibly lucky, you can just keep chaining those executes, stacking their damage, and becoming a crazy beast of damage in those really important execute phases. Also, if you look at the level 75 talent here, this is incredibly important for both high-end dungeons and raids. Execute crits now reduce the rage cost of your next Rampage by 100%. And if you remember, Rampage causes you to become enraged, allowing you to take full benefit of your mastery without it costing any rage, which would take away from the more executes you can do, since executes cost you 25 rage. So, let's charge our gnome friend here. Get him to sub 20%. You get an execute there. Hooray, I get that free Rampage. I use a Bloodthirst just because it generates a little rage. I keep rotating between those executes and those free rampages when I do get them, and it does happen pretty often. The proc rate's actually very, very nice. So during those execute phases, getting those free rampages is going to cause you to do a lot more damage during this specific phase. And generally, this phase is the hardest part for bosses, is the execute phase. So allowing you to up your damage, take full benefit of your mastery, and get these execute stacking is a crazy way to increase your damage and become a really, really top contender on those really, really important parts. As you can see, these things are hitting for 540. Now, of course, this is a PvP training dummy, but it is still level 110. You might get a little less damage on a raid boss since they are technically above 110, but you can see how this this benefit of bouncing between those crits, getting pretty unlucky here, those crits and those free rampages is incredible. Got to 20 stacks there. I had a string of bad luck for, I don't know, 5 or 10 seconds. Not incredibly terrible. But like I said, you shouldn't really be getting past 30 or 40 stacks unless you're in very, very high-end raid content. Also, with most boss fights, there's a lot of movement, and considering that execute stacking only lasts 6 seconds, you want to get it as much as possible and as high as possible. Not always feasible if you're going to be switching from targets, though, so you never know. It really depends on the boss fight. Let's fly over to the other training dummies on top of the ramparts. I'm going to show you the cleave rotation really quick. Very, very simple. All you're really doing is whirlwinding and either using Bloodthirst or Rampage. If you watched my previous guide, every time you whirlwind, both Bloodthirst and Rampage hit 4 nearby additional enemies for 50% of the damage they deal, giving you sustained cleave when you have a lot of adds that last for more than 10 seconds, such as the Twin Dragons and the Emerald Nightmare. When you have those adds, it's always nice to cleave those down as much as possible, and when those extra dragons spawn. Always, always very nice. Not always as much damage, burst damage, as a Blade Storm maybe from an Arms Warrior. However, ours is more sustained, while theirs is about 10 seconds of fame. So, let's charge in here. Unfortunately, I won't be hitting that guy. He's a little too far away. So we'll get a whirlwind here. As you can see, that Bloodthirst is hitting these guys right next to it. Rotating between whirlwind, rampage is pretty good. Getting that enrage timer up. Taking full benefit of your mastery. Of course, don't pay attention to the numbers. These guys are level 85. They'll get wrecked. But as you can see, really, really simple. Of course, when you have those harder ones, you want to pop your Dragon's Roar and then hit them with your Odin's Fury. Giving them that really, really nasty dot and hitting them really hard, increasing your burst damage significantly, and then of course just rolling right back into those whirlwinds and rotating between Bloodthirst and Rampage. That's really about it, guys. Very, very, very simple. If you want to, you can always heroic leap and get a little extra damage. Does a little bit, not too much, but it's always nice to see those extra numbers. I personally prefer charge because it gives you that extra bit of rage. So really, guys, that's about it. Girls, if you're here as well, it's very, very simple for both the execute phases and the cleave phases. Really the one you're going to have to practice a little bit to get into that groove of keeping your enrages up as much as possible during those sustained DPS fights. That's really the only one that's going to take some time getting used to. Other than that, guys, really, really simple. I'll be coming out with a guide here for Protection Warriors as well here shortly. As always, like, comment, subscribe. If you have any questions or comments or concerns, please do list them below. If you want to follow me on my Twitch channel, you can always go to twitch.tv /MrGrim1337. You can see me either streaming raids for our guild or just random content if I'm feeling bored and want to give you guys some music if you're bored as well. So as always, cheers.